and welcome to the debut episode of the Mile High Creative Apron. My name is Apron. I'm not Apron, my name is Daniel. And today is March 1st, 2020. My show will offer a variety of delicious meal recipes and cocktail recipes that I have collected over many, many years. Occasionally, I will offer instructional videos on how to make various imaginative crafts that I have also collected over the years. I hope you'll enjoy it. Hello everyone, welcome to episode 1, Best Ever Crock Pot Roast. What you'll need is a 3 to 5 pound beef chuck roast, salt and pepper, 2 cups beef stock, 1 cup red wine, half an onion, 3 minced garlic cloves, 2 dried bay leaves, 2 tablespoons tomato paste, 1 envelope onion soup mix, half a cup Italian salad dressing, 3 carrots, 5 potatoes, and a stalk of celery. Now let's get started. So the first thing we want to do is cut up the vegetables. Let's start off with the onion. The pieces don't have to be terribly uniform, as they are going to be, cooked very well in the crock pot over time. The next vegetable we want to cut up would be the carrots. I'll get that mushroom at another time, don't worry about it. These things happen. So let's cut up our carrots. I cut them up in fairly medium-sized pieces because you don't want them to turn to mush in the crock pot after they've been cooking for several hours. So that's why I'm cutting fairly large pieces. Okay, let's cut up the celery now. Get rid of that part. Put the celery in the bowl. Let's cut up our potatoes. These are new potatoes, or red potatoes, and I've already peeled them, as you can see, but I'm going to cut them in half, so that there are more of them in the mixture, and they'll also cook more evenly. And mushrooms, I just cut them in half, as you can see, just so that there are more of them, but not too small. Pieces are not too small. All of these vegetables, of course, were washed and prepared before I started cutting them. So the vegetables have been prepared, and we're ready to move on to the next step. And so for the next step, we're going to prepare the mixture where we will put the beef in after we sear it. So the first thing is what you want to put in your 2 cups of beef broth, your 1 cup of red wine. And remember, when you use red wine for cooking, it should be the kind of wine you would drink if you weren't cooking with it, because if it's bad wine, that bad flavor will intensify when you cook it. So I would get good wine if I were you. The half a cup of the Italian salad dressing, the 2 tablespoons tomato paste, and the minced garlic. The 1 teaspoon of thyme, 2 bay leaves, and the 1 envelope of onion soup mix. I'll use my spatula to mix it up initially. Then I'll take a small wire whisk and I'll mix it up thoroughly. This is what the mixture should look like. It'll be pretty watery, but that will change after the roast cooks. Okay, so now the next step is to season the meat with the salt and pepper, and I make it easier on myself. I mix both the salt and pepper in one bowl and mix it up, and of course approximately half of it on one side of the meat, and kind of push it into the meat so it kind of sticks a little bit. Flip the meat over and do the rest of it on the other side. And push it in. Push it in. Just like that. Pretty simple, straightforward. See how it sticks to the meat? Okay, so now we'll move on to the next step, which is to sear the meat before we put it in the crock pot with the vegetables. So now we're going to sear the meat. And what you want to do is get your pan or your Dutch oven, in this case I'm using a Dutch oven, fairly hot. You want it medium to high heat, and once it reaches that level, which I have it there now, we're going to add a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. You always want to add oil to a hot pan and not a cold pan. A couple of tablespoons of olive oil, just so that you can get a good sear on the meat. Okay. So that's a pretty good sear. Now let's take it back to the crock pot. And we'll start our roast. So now we're ready to put the meat in the crock pot with the vegetables. I will put the meat in first, dip it inside all of the liquid, and then simply put in your vegetables. It's a lot of vegetables, I know, but they will cook down. I promise you. What I also do is I kind of mix them up so they're kind of somewhat in the juices or the liquid, but they're not all going to go under the liquid because there's not that much liquid. But as the vegetables release their juices, there will be more liquid. And then when this is done in 6 to 8 hours, I will show you how to thicken the sauce so it's a delicious, wonderful gravy that goes along with the pot roast. So now finally, we get to insert the crock pot inside to the crock pot. And so your choices are, you can have it on low for 8 hours or on high for 6 hours. I'm going to set it on low for 8 hours, and we'll come back in 8 hours and I'll show you what to do next. And so for the final step, we will thicken the sauce. And so the first thing we do is we'll take about a cup of water and 2 tablespoons of flour, and we'll whisk that up like this. Okay, so once that's whisked up, we're going to take approximately half of the liquid from the roast and put it in a saucepan. That's approximately half the liquid. So then we take it to the stove, we heat up the liquid, and we'll mix in the flour and water mixture to thicken up, and then we'll pour it back into the crock pot, and we'll be ready to serve. So now that I brought my liquid to a medium boil, I can add the flour water mixture to thicken it, but not all of it, just enough to thicken it. Add a little at a time until you get the right consistency. And whisk it while you do it to avoid lumps. You have to bring up the heat a little bit more, do so you can keep it going. As you can see, the gravy is already forming. And I think that's probably going to do it. Just bring it up to a boil to cook the raw flour, about a minute or so. And then after this is complete, we'll pour it back into the crock pot with the roast and the vegetables, and it'll be ready to serve. And now the roast is ready to serve. As you can see, it's falling apart. It's fork tender. I'll also add some of the vegetables. Now that looks like a delicious roast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did like this video, please be sure to subscribe. I sure would appreciate it. And I hope to see you next time.